وَإِن تَلْوُوا, and if you twist, if you distort. Talwu is from the root letters lam, waw, ya, from the word lay. And what does lay mean? Talwu, yalwuna, to twist, to bend, to distort. We read earlier, وَإِنَّ مِنْهُمْ لَفَرِيقًا يَلْوُونَ أَلْسِنَتَهُمْ بِالْكِتَابِ. They twist their tongues when reciting the book. So, وَإِن تَلْوُوا, and remember that lay is to turn, to bend the tongue or the neck. وَلَا تَلْوُونَ عَلَىٰ أَحَدٍ. Remember when the Muslims were fleeing from the battlefield and the Prophet ﷺ was calling them and they would not look back. لَا تَلْوُونَ. You wouldn't turn back. So, وَإِن تَلْوُوا أَوْ تُعْرِضُوا, or you turn away. What does it mean by this? That if you twist. This has been understood in a number of ways as well. That first of all, if the witness, if he twists his tongue, meaning he distorts the testimony. He distorts the testimony. So what does it mean by twisting the tongue? Meaning he distorts the testimony. Or he is ambiguous in his words so that the meaning is understood differently. Especially in court. Sometimes people, they word their sentences in such a way that you think that you know what they said, but they actually meant something completely different. It's all a game of words. So in talwu, meaning if you twist your tongue in the sense that you distort the testimony, you misrepresent the case, you give a testimony that is incorrect, you lie about it, or you are ambiguous about it so that it is not understood clearly, then فَإِنَّ اللَّهَ كَانَ بِمَا تَعْمَلُونَ خَبِيرًا. Allah is fully aware of what you're doing. You may be able to deceive some people, you may be able to deceive the judge, however, you cannot deceive Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Secondly, it has been said that in talwu, this address is to the judge. The address is to who? The judge, meaning the one who is making the decision. That if you turn, if you bend, meaning if you bend and turn your neck towards one party and not towards the other party, then what is it? Is that adl? It's not. Remember we learned earlier that part of adl is that the judge, he should be equal in his way of talking, way of addressing, his looking at the two parties as well. That he shouldn't just pay attention to one and ignore the other. So even this is injustice, that he's only looking to one party and he's not even looking at the other party. So in talwu, meaning if you, O judges, bend your necks towards just one side and ignore the other side, don't pay any attention to them, then remember that Allah is watching you. What you're doing is injustice. Others have said that what this means is, in talwu, again the address is to the judge, that if he twists and distorts the case, and hence, because of that, he makes a biased judgment, then, in that case, remember that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is watching you. Others have said that in talwu, this is a general address, that if a person turns his neck, meaning he bends his neck, he turns away from all of these commands that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given over here, out of arrogance. If you look at it from the beginning of the ayah, many commands have been given. كُونُوا قَوَّامِينَ بِالْقِسْطِ شُهَدَاءَ لِلَّهِ وَلَوْ عَلَىٰ أَنفُسِكُمْ. Or your family. If the person is rich or poor, Allah is more deserving. So, if a person turns away out of arrogance and says, no, I don't care. I'm going to support my family, even if they're wrong. I'm never going to admit my mistake, even if I'm wrong. So in this case, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying that if you turn away, remember that Allah is watching you. At the end of the day, you're going to be brought to the court of Allah. In talwu, aw tu'ridu, or you turn away. What does it mean by this, that you turn away? Meaning you refuse to give the shahada. You withhold the testimony. You hide the testimony. You have the shahada. You saw what happened. And the witnesses are being called. But you don't stand up for justice. You don't go to support the truth. تُعْرِضُ, you are turning away from giving the shahada. Then فَإِنَّ اللَّهَ كَانَ بِمَا تَعْمَلُونَ خَبِيرًا. Then indeed Allah is knowing of everything that you do. Meaning, every single action of yours, every single statement of yours, Allah is fully aware of it, of what you say, what you have inside. Because khabir is one who is knowing of the zahir as well as the batin. So at the end of the day, remember to fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. What do we learn from this ayah? First of all, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, كُونُوا قَوَّامِينَ بِالْقِسْطِ. O believers, what should you be? كُونُوا قَوَّامِينَ بِالْقِسْطِ. So we learn about the obligation of إِقَامَةُ الشَّهَادَةِ, of giving testimony. Giving testimony. Standing up for justice. That if there is a dispute between two people, if there is an argument between two people, what should you do? Just be a silent observer? No. Stand up for justice. You have to stand up for justice. Because many times what happens, people say, it's their dispute, it's their argument, it's their problem. I don't want to interfere. I don't want to interfere. And clearly, two people, for example, husband and wife, two siblings, they're arguing, they're fighting. Shouldn't you come in the middle and try to fix the problem between them? Of course you should. If you just watch them passively, you ignore them, you laugh at their arguments, you have a good time listening to their fights, is that appropriate? No. Because if there is some munkar, if there is something that is incorrect, something that is wrong, what is your responsibility? That you have to stop it. Whether that munkar is in your house or it is outside in the society. So first of all, we learn about iqamatu shahada. And there are so many times in which, for example, someone who is poor, someone who is not that guilty, someone who has committed only a small crime, a very innocent thing, but yet he is beaten up in public, he is harmed in public, he is injured in public, literally sometimes a child is killed, he is beaten to death, and there are people who are just watching. People who are just watching as if there's an animal who is being slaughtered. This is against iqamatu shahada. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, كُونُوا قَوَّامِينَ بِالْقِسْطِ. Whenever you see something in which you know that justice must be established, justice must be given, truth must be shown, then stand up for it. Because if you don't, then you are disobeying Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Then your iman is deficient. There's something wrong with your iman. Because it's not possible that a person has iman in his heart and there are people who are doing something wrong, oppressing others, and you don't feel anything? How is it possible? You see someone shouting at someone unjustly, treating the other person very harshly, and you don't feel anything? A believer's heart is soft. A believer's heart is soft. And when he sees something that is wrong, he cannot bear it. He cannot take it. So he will definitely stand up for truth. So first of all, we learn about the obligation of iqamat al-shahada. Secondly, we learn from this ayah about the obligation of being just in shahada. Being just in shahada, meaning standing up for justice. Not standing up for falsehood, for injustice, but standing up for justice. Because it has been said, قَوَّامِينَ بِالْقِسْطِ. Qist is a condition. So the believers, they should speak the truth, they should give just testimony, even if it goes against who? Against a person's own interests. Even if it goes against a person's own parents, own relatives. We also learn from this ayah that a person must stand up for justice even if it goes against himself, his interests, his family, his relatives, his friends. Now a person may question that we've learned so many places in the Quran that وَبِالْوَالِدَيْنِ إِحْسَانًا, do ihsan towards parents. And to who? To the close relatives. Now, is this against ihsan? Is this? But you are proving them guilty. This is not loyalty. How is it ihsan? You are concerned about their akhirah. This is why it does not contradict ihsan, rather it is part of ihsan. Now remember that ihsan is not in supporting someone in the wrong that they're doing. Ihsan is not in supporting someone in the wrong that they're doing. Rather, it is correcting them in order to save their akhirah. For example, if there is inheritance being distributed between siblings. Now, they see that one of the relatives or one of the siblings is being deprived of his share. What is ihsan at that time? That you support the older brother despite the fact that he is being unjust? No. That is not ihsan. Ihsan is that you stop them from what they're doing and you make sure that each and every person gets their share. Similarly, in your own house, it's possible that your sister-in-law is being treated unjustly by your parents. It happens. People see that all the time. In their own house, they see that, for example, the mother-in-law does not tell the daughter to do the work, but rather she tells the daughter-in-law to do the work. Despite the fact that she has children, she has to cook, she has to clean, she has a husband to look after. And the daughter, she's just enjoying at home, she doesn't do anything. So, is this justice? No. Now you, as the daughter, you're just watching? And you won't stand up for justice? If you do stand up for justice, what does that mean? It will be against you. That you will get some work. You will get to do some chores. Now, what should you do? Ihsan towards your mother? No. Ihsan towards yourself? No. This is not ihsan. Ihsan is in correcting them in order to save their akhirah. We also learn from this ayah that the shahada, the testimony, it should be given with ikhlas. It should be given sincerely for the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. In order to gain qurbah, closeness, nearness to Allah. Because many times when we're standing up for justice, we could have this pride inside of us that, look, I'm so just, I'm so fair, that even if it means I have to admit my mistake, even if it means that I am shown as a bad guy, still, I will do it. So sometimes it gives a person this sense of pride, sense of arrogance. But over here Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Shuhada'a lillah. You must do it for the sake of Allah. Not for fame, not for any worldly benefit. But you should do it only for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We also learn from this ayah about the obligation of supporting the one who is on truth. Supporting the one who is on haqq. Whether he is your relative or not. Whether he is rich or poor. You're not going to look at their status. You're not going to look at their good state or at their miserable state. Pity for them or love for them is not going to overcome you. What are you going to do? You must stand up for the one who is on truth. And remember that sometimes, we feel that this person, they try so hard, but still they're not able to do what they should. So it's okay. It's okay. Let me just support them. No big deal. Especially sometimes as teachers when we have to mark test papers. This is something very, very difficult. Because you see a student and you like them because of the fact that they do their lessons every day, or the fact that they're so nice, and you see a student who's not that interested in class. Now, in this situation, what happens? You want to give more marks to the one who is nice. And you want to give less marks to the one who is not a good student. Correct? It happens. Similarly, if there are two children, one is more nice, one is more obedient, the other is not that obedient. What do you want to do? You want to always support the one who is nice, and you want to always punish the one who is generally disobedient. What should you remember? That فَاللَّهُ أَوْلَى بِهِمَا. Am I more just than Allah? Really? Am I more just than Allah? Because if a person is saying that, no, even if they're wrong, I should still support them. Because they're poor, they need help. Then a person should remember that, is he trying to be more just than Allah? Similarly, if there is a person who needs help out of our mercy, out of our affection, what do we think? That we're being very merciful. What should we remember? That are you more merciful than Allah? You're not. Allah is more just than you. Allah is more merciful than you. Then who are you to say that this one deserves more when they don't actually deserve more? And this one deserves less when they do actually deserve more. You're not more just than Allah. You're not more merciful than Allah. So give everyone what they deserve. Don't follow your desires in doing that. We also learn from this ayah about the prohibition of following that desire which leads a person to being unjust. The prohibition of following that desire which leads a person to being unjust. Remember that all desires are not bad. All desires are not bad. Sometimes a person has this desire of the heart or this hawa of the heart in which a person is very zealous, very energetic, he is very emotional, meaning he really wants to stand up for truth and he cannot tolerate anything that is wrong. Is that a good hawa? Is that a good desire? Yes, it is. But there are other desires in which a person is being more pitiful than he needs to be. Or a person is being more generous than he needs to be. A person is being more angry than he needs to be. That type of desire is wrong. So over here, when it is said, فَلَا تَتَّبِعُوا الْهَوَىٰ أَن تَعْدِلُوا, أَن تَعْدِلُوا is like an explanation. That don't follow that desire which is going to lead you away from justice. So don't follow that desire which is going to lead you away from justice. And remember that there are two emotions that prevent a person from being just. Generally, there are two emotions that prevent a person from being just. What are they? First of all, love. Love. That you love someone more. You love a student more. You love a friend more. You love a relative more. You love a child more. As a result, what happens? Sometimes people become biased. And what's the other emotion? Hatred. That because you hate someone more, no matter what they say, they're always going to be wrong. So, love and hatred. These are mainly two desires that lead a person away from justice. Which is why the one who loves for Allah, the one who hates for Allah, then such a person has perfected his iman. Such a person has completed his iman. Because his standard of love and hate is according to the standard of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Amongst many other desires, love and hate are of them, but fear is also a big reason. Sometimes it leads a person away from standing up for justice. That you're afraid that if you say something, you're going to be shouted at. If you say something, you're going to be deprived of your haqq. So yes, fear is also one of the big reasons. We also learn from this ayah that in giving shahada, a person should not follow his desires, rather he should stand up for what? Truths. Rather he should stand up for justice. We learn in Surah Al-Ma'idah, ayah number 8, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَلَا يَجْرِمَنَّكُمْ شَنَآنُ قَوْمٍ عَلَىٰ أَلَّا تَعْدِلُوا اِعْدِلُوا هُوَ أَقْرَبُ لِلتَّقْوَى. And do not let the hatred of a people prevent you from being just. That just because you hate someone, shana'anu, it's enmity, it's hatred against some people, don't let it prevent you from being just. Be just. Why? Because it is nearer to taqwa. It is nearer to righteousness. We also learn from this ayah about the prohibition of distorting or hiding the testimony. The prohibition of distorting or hiding the testimony. Where do we learn that from? Where do we learn that from? وَإِن تَلْوُوا أَوْ تُعْرِضُوا. What does it show? The prohibition of hiding or distorting the testimony. We learn in Surah Al-Baqarah, ayah number 283, وَمَن يَكْتُمْهَا فَإِنَّهُ آثِمٌ قَلْبُهُ. The one who hides it, meaning the one who hides the testimony, surely he is sinful at heart. He is committing a sin. Where? Where is he committing a sin? In his heart. So وَمَن يَكْتُمْهَا فَإِنَّهُ آثِمٌ قَلْبُهُ. Many times we see something that is incorrect. We see people being unjust towards others, but we don't say anything. We don't say anything. We're like, it's not my problem. تُعْرِضُ, you're turning away. You're hiding it. But tomorrow, you could be in the same problem. Because if you allowed somebody to do it, tomorrow, you're allowing somebody else to do it on you. And many times what happens is that sometimes if the husband and wife don't get along with one another, and they provoke their children against the other parent, and what happens, the children, they start being rude towards, let's say, the father. And the mother, what does she do? She doesn't stop them. But what happens? If she doesn't stop them tomorrow, they're going to be rude towards her. They have lost respect for their father. Tomorrow, they will lose respect for you. That's exactly what is being said. وَلَوْ عَلَىٰ أَنفُسِكُمْ. Even if the testimony goes against your favor, that you will suffer the harm. Or against your parents, or against the close relatives, that somebody is going to suffer punishment or something like that, if you give that testimony. Because what's the message? That you have to stand up for justice, no matter what. The love of someone, the hate of someone, pity for someone, loyalty to someone, friendship with someone should not stop you. And sometimes if you give the shahada, if you give the testimony, then the criminal or his supporters, they threaten you that they're going to harm you. So in that case again, فَاللَّهُ أَوْلَى بِهِمَا, Allah is better protector. وَلَوْ عَلَىٰ أَنفُسِكُمْ, it goes against yourself. But remember that if you're standing up for justice, and if you do suffer any harm, then it is in the way of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because you are giving shahada lillah, for Allah. And if you do something for the sake of Allah, and if you suffer any harm as a result of that, then inshallah you are going to be rewarded for it, because you did that action for the sake of Allah. And we see that standing up for justice doesn't mean that you support it in your heart only. But you have to be proactive. You have to be actively involved in supporting justice, in standing up for justice. Many times the psychology behind not standing up for justice is that somebody else will take care of it. Somebody else will say something. But many times what happens is that everybody thinks that somebody else will do it and nobody does it. And as a result, what happens? People get oppressed. People are not given their rights. So, when you see something, when you hear something, and you know that some action is required, then take that action. Because justice today will bring justice in the akhirah for a person. The Prophet ﷺ said, خَيْرُ الشُّهَدَاءِ الَّذِي يَأْتِي بِشَهَادَتِهِ قَبْلَ أَنْ يُسْأَلَهَا. The best witness is he who brings a testimony before being asked to do so. Meaning he comes and he gives a testimony before he is asked. So we learn that a person should not distort or hide the testimony. And part of hiding the testimony is that you know what is correct, but still you don't say it. So who is the best witness? If he has a testimony, he comes and gives it even before he is asked. We also learn about this ayah about the warning against injustice. Because فَلَا تَتَّبِعُوا الْهَوَىٰ أَن تَعْدِلُوا. Don't follow the desire, lest you may be unjust. What does it show to us? That we must not be unjust. There is warning against being unjust. Which is why we see that the Salaf, when they would kiss one child, they would kiss the other child as well. This is how just they were. We also learn from this ayah that about the warning for the one who does not do iqamat al-shahada, who does not stand up for truth, who twists his testimony, etc. All of these commands that are mentioned in this ayah, who doesn't follow them the way that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has commanded them. So there is severe warning against such a person. Why? Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says at the end that He is khabir. He is fully aware of what you're doing. That you saw something. You had the ability to stand up and stop it, but you didn't. You had a shahada, but you still didn't go and give that shahada. You had the shahada, but you didn't give it because it was against your interests, against your relatives. Or out of the pity for the poor, you distorted, you changed the testimony. So remember that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is aware. And when a person does not stand up for justice, then what happens? Crime and injustice, they prevail in the society. And it starts from the house. That you see something wrong, you don't stop it. You see that somebody must be given their haqq, but you don't give them their haqq. If you can tolerate that in your own house, why can you not tolerate that in the society? If it is something so close to you, but still it doesn't bug you, what about those things that are far from you? How are they ever going to upset you? They're never going to upset you. So, we see that if we don't stand up for justice, then it leads to injustice. It leads to crime. And this is definitely at a larger scale. But on a one-on-one level as well, we learn that وَلَوْ عَلَىٰ أَنفُسِكُمْ. What does it mean? That even if it goes against yourself. Meaning, even if it means that you have to admit your mistake. Many times we clearly see that it is our fault. It's my fault. It's really my mistake. Why I made that mistake? That's a different thing. I forgot, I didn't know, it could be different reasons. But many times we know clearly that it is our fault. But still what do? We don't admit. We present excuses. We say that no, I'm not wrong because of this and this reason. So, admitting our mistakes is also part of iqamat al-shahada. Sometimes people think that, okay, I won't admit my mistake, but I'll just do istighfar. But the thing is that a person can do istighfar. However, if it is something wrong that he did to another person, then he has to seek forgiveness from them. That is part of tawbah. Remember that. Because there are some sins that are against Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. For that, you do tawbah. And there are other sins that are against people. For that, you have to apologize. You have to seek their forgiveness as well. So part of that would be, how would it begin? That a person, first of all, accepts his mistake. Many times, if you look at the ayat in which ihsan towards relatives and parents is mentioned, before that, what is mentioned? وَاعْبُدُوا اللَّهَ. Worship Allah. So obedience to Allah comes first. Then comes kindness and generosity towards other relatives. Recitation of the ayat.